Okay, here's another lesson on drawing curves. Big idea here is that if you want to draw a circle, you can begin with a square, right? You mark the middle of the four sides like that, and then you make an arc that connects these points 4 times, always the same arc, and there's a circle. Notice that the circle touches the square only at these 4 points, and that these arcs are all exactly the same. And the reason they're the same is, of course, because these angles are all the same. These angles are all 90 degrees. Got it? Okay. Now look at our grid. We don't have any 90-degree angles within these triangles. So we need to do something a little different. We can draw squares, but we have to follow the lines on our grids, and that means our squares are going to be either laying down like this one, or they're going to be standing up like this one. But in either case, we can make circles. Here's what we do. We mark the centers of the 4 sides, and then we pay attention to our angles. We have 2 different kinds of angles in this diamond shape. I'm going to erase this one for now just to clean this up a little. We have angles that are big, like this one, and smaller, like this one. If you want to know how many degrees they are, let's take a look at what kind of triangles these are. These are equilateral triangles, right? You might have learned that in geometry or in middle school. Every triangle has a sum of 180 degrees if you add up all the angles, all 3 of them, right? 180 divided by 3 is 60. So we know that these angles are all the same. They're all 60 degrees, and that's why we call it equilateral. In our square that we just drew, all our angles were 90 degrees, so they were all bigger than these, right? So that means these 2 angles are 60. They're a little smaller than 90. And these 2, the big ones, are made up, as you can see, of 2 triangle points. So they are actually 2 times 60, or 120 degrees. So they are much bigger than 90 degrees. So what we're going to notice is that in our 120 degree angles, our arcs are going to get relatively flat like that. And then in our 60 degree angles, they're going to be relatively pointy like that. And the shape we've just drawn is, of course, known as an ellipse. And we're going to be drawing a lot of ellipses. Really important to practice. If we want to draw a cylinder like this one, notice that if we're looking down on it like we are the other shapes in isometric, this shape here is also an ellipse, and it's very much like this one, right? Notice also, though, that if we move this around, move it like this or like this, it could be any shape of ellipse. Okay, this is a very fat ellipse. This is a very skinny ellipse. It could be any kind of ellipse in between. In isometric perspective, we're only going to see one kind of ellipse. So, unlike real life where you might be confronted with an infinite variety of ellipses, in isometric perspective, you're confronted with exactly one kind of ellipse, and that's all we're going to have to learn how to draw. So if I want to turn this ellipse into a cylinder, let's imagine that I did just draw the top. And let's look at the height of this cylinder. I can measure it and tell you that it is, well, it's less than 3 inches, but we're going to round up and call it 3 inches. So we're going to count down 3. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. And that's how we're going to know where to put the bottom one, like that. And we're going to draw exactly the same shape of ellipse down here that we drew there. And the great thing about this is once you've memorized how to draw this ellipse, when you are drawing an actual ellipse from observation, all you're going to have to do is say to yourself, is this fatter than an isometric ellipse or skinnier? And you'll have an easy time drawing it because you'll have a kind of average ellipse memorized. And then we're going to go to the outside of this curve and go straight down. Notice that we're about halfway between these two lines. And we're going to go straight down here, and we should be touching the outside of that curve. And that's how we turn our ellipse into a solid form. Erase the construction lines, and we are done. So what I want you to do is practice drawing a lot of ellipses, and always begin by drawing a box, a square. Mark your centers. Make your pointy angles into the tight corners, pushing about halfway into that corner, and make your flat arcs into the big angles, again pushing about halfway into the corner. And once you get used to drawing those arcs, it's going to become easy to draw these ellipses. Some of the shapes utilize half ellipse, half cylinder forms. So let's say we've got one that is a cylinder cut in half laying down. If it's a half a cylinder, we're going to begin with half a square, right? 1 by 2. Mark the center of the top. Flat curve here. Pointy curve here. And let's make it 2 units deep. And we'll do the same half a circle on this end. And we come around and like that. And then maybe that's on top of a box, and we can just come straight down. And that's how you do some of the forms that are like barrel forms on top of boxes. There are a few of those. Made that curve a little too flat. Notice that one way to go wrong is if I have to make that barrel form again, I'm going to make it 2 by 4 this time. A lot of people just want to make it like a half a circle, like that. And then they connect it, and notice it just doesn't look like it's standing up straight, right? Looks like it's tilted back like that. We do not want that. It's because I didn't follow the steps. Mark the center, make one curve really pointy, pushing halfway into that corner, make the other curve flatter. Right? And you see what happened? It just went from like leaning back to standing up straight. Connect it. Build down if you want. And there it is. So until you get good at ellipses, don't try to do any of these shapes. Just make squares, turn them into ellipses, and try covering an entire page with these. I would say that would be a good thing to do. The more you do, the better you'll get at it. It gets more and more comfortable and fast. Do them laying down and standing up. Here's a laying down one. And this is really going to develop your fluency for drawing, and it's going to lead to success with all different kinds of drawing. Before I stop this, I just want to show you a little bit what you can expect to do with this skill. This is work by a former student, Michelle Berryman, who's currently working as a commercial artist. See this barrel shape on top of this lunchbox? Here's the flat curve, there's the pointy curve. See this beautiful ellipse at the top of this cylinder here. And if we look at more of her work, here, even though these are spheres, you can see they are ellipses on the ground. Here, these wine glasses have perfect ellipses for their tops and their bottoms. Again, all different shapes and sizes. And here again, ellipses everywhere you look. And people who are assessing your portfolio, if you do decide to apply to an art school or use a portfolio to help you get into college, are going to definitely be looking for this particular skill. So it's wise to practice as much as you can now. That's it for today. Thanks a lot.